Welcome to SolFul Connections, where we skip the small talk and head right into the soul talk. I'm Amanda Solar, and each week we share the kinds of stories that remind us we're not alone. It's about being human, raw and unfiltered, just real talk. Let's connect.
Connection.
My guest today is Dr. Michelle L. Khoury. And Michelle guides people through one of life's biggest transitions, parenthood. What could be bigger? But Michelle's work goes well beyond pregnancy, and it goes really deep into the human experience. Michelle is the founder of Yoga Mazia and the creator of Smart Parenting. I want to hear more about that. Let's connect with Dr. Michelle. Welcome.
Yes, hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm happy that you're on. So before we even jump in, before we get started, can you share with me something right now that you're either working on learning or you're unlearning, something that you're just kind of working on?
Yeah, every day it's an experience, right? This right now, particularly, we are setting up our virtual hub. I wouldn't even say it's setting up, it's actually up, but we were forced to do it a little bit sooner rather than later because earlier this year my system was hacked.
Oh, that's
And
horrible.
so what I started to learn was more about sort of cybersecurity and all of the spaces that we're in now in a digital world and some of the things that I just never considered,
Ah,
not being in that world.
ah,
And so I'm really immersed into that space right now and what it can do for us and how you can literally just be anywhere in the world and have this still do the things that you want to do and help the people that you want to help. But you have to prepare for it, right? It's all
yeah.
about that strategic preparation, which is basically the work that I do. And it's literally, following my own lessons sometimes in life.
I mean, that's the ultimate dream. And also, it sounds like just being hacked is like one of life's horrors.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah. Um, so if you flip back through chapters, where did the work that you're doing now, what chapter did that originate in? Where did you start to get that call to do this?
So there were a few parts along the way that I think were nudging me, but I didn't listen maybe to the calling.
Yeah.
My background, I have like a corporate background, so I spent 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry. Prior to that, I'm a pharmacist by training, worked in clinical research, and so I worked in hospitals and different, retail settings, and then moved into pharma. And you sort of just started climbing the corporate ladder, and along the way, you're just kind of like doing the things. My first pregnancy was one that was very eye-opening in the sense of how we think as a woman about what our life is, right? I think my mindset was I'm pregnant, I'm 28 years old, I'm educated, I'm, on my way to life, right?
Right.
What more is there to be? I have this baby and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, but I soon found out that that was not the case. And so the journey through that pregnancy and that birth and even postpartum, there were just so many different things that, really got me to thinking about what that would look like.
Yeah.
So, fast forward 10 years when I'm pregnant with my second, it was a very different experience because I found the practice of yoga in my life really did take a different turn. And even then, I would say that the nudgings were there of, oh, this is such a great experience. It would be great to share this. What can we do with this? Right. And I did follow one part of the call in the sense that I took a step further and started delving into it. I took a year off and I traveled and did different trainings and, really immersed myself into it. And as part of that, I also furthered the path in terms of prenatal yoga and what those benefits were, because again, it was something that was that I was called to, because that was what helped me in that experience and in that part of my life. Um, and that then, kind of just led the way as to more mindfulness techniques. I'm a data person by trade. So it's like, I always love the research that's behind whatever it is I'm working on, right?
Yeah.
So in the pharma world, we have to look at, okay, not just, okay, this drug is great, but it's how do you educate the world on it, right? How do you distill all of these tables and tables and tables of data and bring it into a way that the average person would be able to understand,
Yeah.
including whatever the risks are involved with it? And so as I was delving into that research, it's a lot of the science behind what mindfulness is, what that does to the brain, etc. And so it was just more modern curiosity for myself. Okay.
Yep.
All of this is just sort of my side sort of education. I can't even say it's a hustle because I was not working. I wasn't doing it, for money or
Right.
anything. Um, and my third came along and it really just impacted the journey that I had with her. She was born at home, unplanned. Like, I experienced no pain with her. It was just me instilling all of the things that I had learned along the way to have her. So that's a story that
Say
really
she was
good.
unplanned at home. Like, do you mean that she was unplanned? Like you didn't plan the third one? Or do you mean that you didn't plan to have her at home?
Both. So along the path of me finding, my yogic path, I will just simplify it by that. I was doing all of these trainings and I was actually in my prenatal yoga teacher training, not knowing I was pregnant. Okay. So my second was about 15 months at the time when I found out. And so we went through this whole phase and in my mind, I just didn't realize that I was. My husband likes to say he planned it, but let's just put that to the side. Um, but that was when it was kind of like an eye opener, like, oh my gosh, like it's like this out of body experience type of thing that I think that whole pregnancy, I was in an out of body experience
Yeah.
because my practice instilled with all of the mindfulness, instilled with the hypnobirthing, instilled with everything else. I woke up and was in labor. But
Wow.
those sensations were such a different feeling for me, right? And so there was not even any time to say, oh, yeah, let's pack the bag and go to the hospital. It was, no, this baby's on the way. And it was a beautiful experience, beautiful. Like, I love to tell the full story of it. Um, but that really set a precedent basically from moving forward.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really until further into my life with her and moving back to where we are today and all of these other things that it took a different turn.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the conversions. So leaving kind of, corporate America, so to speak,
Hmm.
and then moving into what you're doing now, what did you have to kind of let go of in order to do that? Were there any, I don't know, identity things or expectations that you kind of had to surrender?
Absolutely. Because when you're in this journey of career, right? Let's first define that. I think the definition of career as it stands is very subjective. Let's put it that way,
Yes.
right? We think of having a career as you sitting in an office, going to an office every day, and you move from one level to the next, to the next, to the next, which is what I had, right? I started at entry level. I left in the executive level. It's all of these definitions that we were sort of boxed around,
Yeah.
right? We do that usually. Um, and so along that way, there were things that I had to navigate, right? It wasn't this like, okay, let's just this straight line. I went from entry level and then I got promoted here and then I got promoted here. And all of those things happen. But the path to get there was so rugged.
Yeah.
It gets to a point where you're really questioning why you're doing it. And I think along the way I was questioning, but questioning and ignoring at the same time.
Right. 100%. I get that.
And, I ended up with some health issues that occurred pretty much at the height, at the peak, almost at the peak. I wouldn't say it's the peak yet, but close to the peak of my career. I was traveling a lot, doing a lot of things. I managed like global teams and multi-million dollar budgets. And, I was in and out, in and out, in and out. I would say I was in that a part of my life where it was really just, I probably didn't really know what was going on. You're just doing, when you're just in that part of your life where
Yeah.
you're just
No
living.
time in a sense. Yeah.
And so when I ended up in that hospital room, I think that was the second part where, I liken it to three parts of the journey. The first was when I was pregnant with my third, and I kind of saw what my life would be. It's like you have this
Yeah.
future path of, oh my goodness, this is such, I want to feel this way all the time. And then the second time in my life was when I had my first heart incident, and I was sitting in the hospital room. I was supposed to get on a plane to go to Korea the next day. And I'm sitting in the hospital bed and saying to myself, this is so interesting because I remember having the exact same feeling probably about 4 or 5 years before, when I was questioning my career, and we had moved out of the country and there were some things going on there, and I had to like just upend my life and just turn around. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is this how I want to be? Right.
Yeah.
Um, but then, I got better and they discharged me and I went back to work, and that was it. Right.
Yeah.
But I think the big boulder came. I love to use the word boulder. One of the beautiful people that I follow, her name is Patrice Washington. She talks about how you have pebbles along the way. You're right. The pebbles are the
Yeah.
small things, and then the boulder hits you. And that's when you wake up. So the boulder came. The boulder came right before the pandemic when, I realized that I was missing out on a big, big part of my kids' life. There is so much behind that story, but um, it made me have to rethink about what my career and my path would look like. And that daughter, she looked at me one day and said, Mom, maybe it's time for you to use the things that you use, because she sees what it could do and what, how it benefited in certain ways and what I loved doing. And that was yoga. And that was, pregnancy and all of the other little things that were kind of like just little spots here and there.
Yes.
She was like, why don't you use this to help others? And that was a really big wake up call for me then.
Yeah.
Because it was a very emotional time for all of us. And it was also unexpected.
Do you
And
mean the health crisis was the emotional?
what caused that particular circumstance that happened? It was very, very emotional for us. My daughter was going through her own journeys at the time. And that's when I said, okay, you know,
That was the
it,
boulder.
that was the boulder. That was the boulder. And it's not to say you don't get more pebbles and boulders in life, but that was certainly when I stopped that path and I said, okay, let's think about how we would do this. And that's when I started to make the transition.
Yeah. Yeah. I know sometimes I think I'll get like a little tap on the shoulder, and then I'll get like a little nudge, and I'm the person that I need the shove. I need like the kick in the back, because I just, our brains and our desires and our expectations are so strong that we can, like you said, you hear those whispers, but you're like, listen, I'm on a path, right? And so you went into pharmacy when you were a little girl. Do you remember, like, what did you want to be when you grow up? What did you like to do?
I wanted to be a fashion designer. I wanted to be one of those people when you see someone on like Broadway or walking
Yeah.
the runway or something. I loved all of the flash and the glam and the glitter and all these beautiful costumes. I'm originally from Trinidad, which is an island in the Caribbean. And we have Carnival
Oh,
every
right.
year, and I loved it. And so it's just all of that, the color and the happiness and the joy that you see. And so
Yes.
it's very different from what I eventually, the
Yes,
path
that's
that I
right.
took, right? I went from that to,
It's natural you went into pharmaceuticals. So do you know what made that shift? Do you remember when you were like, okay, no to the fashion, yes to the pharmacy?
No, I actually don't. I think about that sometimes, actually,
Yeah.
like, oh, what if I did like
Yeah.
into arts or something? I think it was I I think that also goes back to how we're raised.
Yes.
You know, we are raised in a way that we don't accept everything as equal, right?
Yes.
Whether it's people, whether it's status, whether it's careers, whether it's so I think that blocks a lot of people from moving in the direction that they may eventually have ended up.
Yes. That
Um,
makes sense.
and so for me, I think it's the typical, well, this is where I'm supposed to do this, right? I have to be a doctor, or I have to be a lawyer, or I
Right.
have to be an accountant, or whatever it is. And so it never occurred to me that I could stop and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to do art or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're originally from Trinidad. What role does that culture have still in your life? Does that still have a place in your world and in your life?
Absolutely. I think, especially in today's world, um, Trinidad is a very diverse country and culture in terms of races, religions. And so we grew up learning everybody's history and embracing everybody's culture. And and it's still the same. There's holidays for everybody's faith and everybody. So you are literally, and then of course I am mixed in terms of ethnicity and race as well. So I got to see all the different sides of the different families. And you grew up with that equity umbrella already there. So when I moved to the US as a young woman, the way that I see race here is so different,
Yeah.
right? I you really feel it.
Yeah.
I feel it more, I would say. It's not to say that there's no racial division. Everywhere you go, there's something, right? There's some sort of division that goes on, but it's the degree to which it is. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so the degree to which you would feel it is a lot more than what I grew up with.
It's one of the reasons what you're saying reminds me that it's one of the reasons people should travel,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
because you don't know if you're only in this silo how different the world can look and can be,
Absolutely.
you know?
And that doesn't even mean leaving the country. That
That's
could
true.
be just going, knowing what I know. I've traveled to so many different places. And if I have to come back to, okay, even in the US,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can
yeah.
go from one side to the next and and it's still a different culture. And so even just seeing that
Yeah.
would be helpful.
What is your favorite place to travel to? Do you have a favorite?
Yes, my dream, my big dream is to you know, at the end of the day, I consider Yoga Maysia to be the sanctuary, right? There
Yeah.
is this, of course, it started off as this physical yoga studio, but it's more than that now. Our community is past just this physical space, you know, going online, going out of state, there are people who join our group classes, through different elements, wherever they are. And now we have our virtual hub that is now up and running, and so that's really the my pride and joy right now.
It's great.
But eventually I do see it more moving towards being a sanctuary outside, out of the studio, out into the world, where I have this beautiful retreat center and hub that everyone would come to. And I know where it's going to be. I know it's going to be in the country of Morocco, because that is where my heart and soul
Oh
is
my gosh, you're
called.
giving me chills.
And I think, it's again, when you know what your Dharma is,
Yeah.
that will be the space. And I think the more time goes by, the more clarity comes.
Yeah.
And that is basically where I think it's gonna be. I see the vision of all these beautiful women sitting around a campfire with me,
Yeah. So what is it
embracing
about
that.
Morocco?
Very good question. So my third daughter was born in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. And my pregnancy with her and my birth with her, I said it took a very different, it's sort of this out of body experience. And her name is Sahara. Sahara has many different meanings. You can use the Arabic version, you can use, there are different versions of it. She was born very early in the morning, and, Dubai, the Middle East area, is a desert. And she always wanted to go to the Sahara Desert because in her mind, the Sahara Desert is named after her. And that's the whole reason.
That.
She thinks that that's why we named her that, but it was actually not because of that. And so we were fortunate enough to, we've been to many different places. We travel. My husband is from the Middle East. He's from Lebanon. I'm from Trinidad. And so both of us come with very different cultures, and we try to ingrain that into our kids. And so our kids are also very well traveled, because whenever we have the opportunity, we would take them somewhere. And we had the fortunate experience to travel to Morocco on one occasion. And both of my husband and I, we travel a lot. He travels with his job. I used to travel with my job. So it wasn't the first time that we'd been in, the area. But when we did go there and we were able to go to the Sahara Desert, it was not just for her,
Yes.
the look on her face, my daughters, all of us, we were so happy. It was a very beautiful experience. But when I stood on the sand, and you basically stand in the middle of nowhere, and you're looking out and there's nothing. There's nothing. And it's the beautiful pictures that you see online, but feeling it and standing it there, like experiencing a sunrise, experiencing a sunset, and the air that you're breathing, and driving through the mountains, and driving through, because we did a beautiful cross country experience as well, not just the desert. It stirred up something in me that was so overwhelming that it was just a very immediate feeling for me.
Yeah.
This is it. This is where I will spend my end days.
That's powerful.
And so that was where, it's funny because I had always envisioned Yoga Mesa being some sort of sanctuary retreat area. I just never saw where it was. I had gone to different places, like, oh, this is a nice place, and this is a nice place, and this is a nice place. It's sort of like when I first opened the studio. I used to drive around long before I said I'm going to open the studio. I would drive around, and that's why my daughter had that vision. She saw the vision long before me, my eldest. I would say to her or my husband, or, oh, that would be a really nice space. They're not utilizing that space, as good as it could be. And this is a really nice space for this. And so that's the feeling that I got when I was there.
Wow. And Yoga Mesia, can you describe A, why the name, and B, what exactly Yoga Mesia is?
So Yoga Mesia is, and has always been, irrespective of physicalities, virtual, etc. It's what I liken it to be, a sanctuary, because the word sanctuary means home. It's an inner feeling. And it's a sanctuary for maternal and children's wellness education. It's always been that way. From the moment it was opened, the studio physically. And even as we evolve from the studio to the virtual hub, or even to a retreat center, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So, and when I say maternal, the traditional definition is, mothering, right? So that does not necessarily mean that you have to physically have a biological, human. It is the maternal instincts that most of us as humans have.
Yeah.
And how we can protect each other. And the name, funny enough, it doesn't have a specific meaning other than when I was opening and my kids and I were trying to come up with different names, I basically crowdsourced it. I went online and I said, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want, these are the objectives. This is what I think it will look like. And I put it out into the world. And, there were different names that came back, and one of them was Yoga Mesia. And I thought, wow, this is, it was a big voting amongst my family and friends, and it literally won by 1 point.
Oh, wow.
That's the story behind. I was the deciding factor because it was people were so torn between the final two, Yoga Maisie and then another name. And I felt more called to
Yeah.
that name. And so that's
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting because I think it's like I almost find it very like labyrinth, like just maybe something about yoga and the maze and
yeah. The yoga I think would always be there regardless of what we do and what I offer. I
yeah,
feel that because that is the base, that's my base, and it's coming back to the self, right? That's the meaning of yoga. So I wanted that element in there. And yeah, I think that's it. It just I leave things up to the spirits that be sometimes. I
yeah.
try not to be as prescriptive, but there's always a meaning
Mhm.
behind everything that is yoga media.
So, what is the smart parenting?
It came from the idea of basically my life. It's my entire career from practicing pharmacy to moving into pharma to what I'm doing now. There came a point when I said to myself, and this is when I was in the pharma world, we would have to set these smart goals, right?
Yeah.
Most people in corporate, if they're in a corporate career, they probably understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
You would set these smart goals, and then those goals were, the 2 or 3 goals that you had for the year that would then determine, your progression, how you're developing, etc. And then you would sit with your boss or your manager at the end of the year and do your annual review, and then the next year you'd reset a whole nother set of goals. And as I was going through my journey as a parent, and I thought about, my pregnancies, my postpartums coming in and lining that up with my leadership style and quality, I realized that I was separating the two, right? You would get
Yeah.
up, go to work, and here I am, this team leader, this boss, this whatever. And then I come home and now I'm a parent or now I'm a wife.
Right.
And when I started this work, starting, being an entrepreneur, I started putting, in my mind, I'm like, okay, but why are we creating smart goals just for work, right? Like,
Yeah.
why was it always just for work? Why not have it for our lives? What we also need that constant re-evaluation and re-evaluation of what
Yeah.
we're doing, right? And so I started really thinking about all of the things that I had learned, all of the things that were going along the way as I, based on the people that I worked with in corporate, based on the pregnant families, the postpartum families, the parents, the kids that would, come to classes. It all came together, and I started thinking about what that was. And I sat with one of my coaches, and she was like, why don't, you're smart, Michelle. Why don't you just say smart? Like, because I was kind of going through like, here are the things that I'm doing. These are the things that I want to do, etc. And she was like, why don't you just, all of this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Put it together. And so the smart journey to parenting came forth from that, where the S stands for set your vision. What is your purpose, right? And this is not specific to your career or, even as a person, just in general in life,
Yeah.
your dharma. M is mindfully prepare, because we cannot move through anything in life without not just preparing, but being in the present moment. Again, coming back to yoga, the union with the self.
Yeah.
A, advance your understanding.
Mm.
There's a lot of things that I didn't know about myself, health wise. So my heart issues, for as an example, right? In the world of birth, that's you need to know about your body. So when I'm going through, here's why we're doing what we're doing, because these are the changes that are going through your body. And this is why we're doing this specific movement to help you breathe this baby out. The
Yeah.
R means rise with strength. And strength is always from the perspective of, we've always thought of it as a physical,
Mhm.
right? And it is a physical, and that is the physical elements, it's whether it's your yoga practice or you're walking every day, but it's intentional movement. So
Yeah.
not just moving. We're not just going to go and be like, yeah, we got to get 30 reps in. No, why? And having an intention with that. And then T, thrive together. You cannot do anything without a community.
Yep.
right? And so it's about that community building. How are we connecting with ourselves in a way that we are aligned with the people that we're connected to? Because sometimes we just have connections, but those connections are not serving our purpose.
Yeah.
So it's about having aligned connections that will help you along this journey.
Yeah. I love that so much because I think that anyone who's listening, from a single man to a 90-year-old person, could take that and apply it. I love that
Absolutely.
so much.
Yes. The framework itself is the pillars, everything around it were based on this, the perinatal journey. But the overall aspects is us as leaders of our lives as we transition. Each of us goes through a different stage of life. And so
Yes.
that's where we have to constantly evaluate
Right.
what is going on. So that vision at the very beginning is what is paving the way for everything else. But that vision might change, every years or whatever that is.
Yeah. I'm thinking also as you're talking that there are just so many expectations placed upon women specifically, from even the expectation and pressure to be a mother and then to be a type of mother, but also to be successful and to be kind and to look good while you're doing it and all of the things. Um, I don't even know if there's a question in there, Michelle. I just had that observation.
No, it is. And that's where the smart journey came
Yeah.
from. My life of all of that and the perceptions that are around all of that.
Yeah.
And how we can really sort of take away these myths that have been placed on us societally of, oh, you've got to balance it all and you've got to do this and you've got to no, just accept yourself for who you are, accept your positioning for what it is, accept the journey for what it is, and then make it fit for you. How do you make it fit for you?
Yeah.
That's how I became a smart parent.
Right. Yes. I love it. What about if you were talking to little Michelle? Michelle, who was just sitting there loving like Carnival in Trinidad or dreaming whatever it was that you were dreaming. If you could talk to her and just give her like one little thing, what would that be?
I always have the same answer when someone asks me this question.
What?
Little Michelle was not as confident in who she was.
Yeah.
And so I still talk to myself all the time.
Yeah.
I go back to, the younger version of me when I look in the mirror and I just say, be yourself.
Yeah.
Do not let the world decide who you need to be. And that comes back to the framework, the S, setting your vision. The first thing in that step is reclaim who you are and what you want and not let society or whatever else, the person around you, your parents, your spouse, your family, your friends, no one else should be dictating that. The
Right.
only person who can really truly shine in the way that they need to is yourself. And so that again, if we come back to what yoga is, it's union with the self.
So for anyone who's listening, maybe specifically for a woman, but really anyone who's just sitting there thinking, well, I'm overwhelmed or I'm stuck or I'm trying to do it all.
Mhm.
Is there a starting point, do you think? Or is there like a little tip that you could share?
I will share what my first teacher told me. The question that she asked me when I walked into my very first yoga class, and I was pregnant at the time, right? It was with my second pregnancy, and I had these misperceptions, I would say, of what yoga was, right? Everybody thinks it's very physical. And not that the answer to this question is go practice yoga. I always like to be very clear about that because it is the practice
Yeah.
that is what the practice of whatever that is. For me, it's the practice of presence.
Yeah.
Your presence is the practice. because when I walked into that class and I said to her, hey, I'm pregnant. I don't know, is this really good? Da, da, da. She's like, she looked at me and she said, are you breathing? And I said, yes. And she said, well, then you're already practicing yoga.
Love that.
So again, it's what we're defining as the thing, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But what did breathing do? Breathing allowed me to be present in my body, in my mind. It allowed me to connect with who I was. The clarity starts to come when you sit in the moment and you're just present
Yeah.
in anything that you're doing.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the answer is when somebody says, I'm overwhelmed or whatever. I don't know what you're overwhelmed with. However, let's just take a moment to allow yourself to come within. And from there, there's a ripple effect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you bring it back to present, it is calming. You're not worrying about something that just happened. You're not looking towards something that's impending. You're being in the moment.
Accept.
What do you do to bring light into your world, to bring joy into your world? What do you do when the world feels heavy?
Mhm. Aside from taking that moment for myself,
Yeah.
every day I usually have to, because there is something that's going to, there's something that will always be thrown at you
Yeah.
even by those closest to you, right? So we have
Yeah.
to remember that as a parent, right? Your kids are going to do and say things, your partner, your mother, so it's about how do you come back to that calm whenever you can, whatever circumstance there is. So for me, I try to meditate every day. I have specific times of the day. I use all of the tools available to me. There's 5,000 apps available. Find one. Do you need an app? No. Set a timer on your phone, which I do too. I do everything. It's the OCD in me. I set the timer on my phone. I have to give multiple things to remind me, Michelle, breathe.
Yeah.
I have to do that because of my heart. I have to check it X amount of times a day. I have to sit there. I'm so in tune with my body now that I know when something's wrong. And so it's allowing yourself to know how to keep the energy around you. Anyone who's practiced with me, any class that I've ever had with you, I always say, protect your force field. We are all living, we stand in our own bubbles. As long as no one comes through that bubble, you're fine. So what can you do? What are the things that you have to do in your world? Because again, it will be different for everyone. The things that trigger you, the things that someone might say. And so when, when I'm sitting with my pregnant family or, if someone's in the yoga class, and I always come back to how do you protect the force field around you?
Love that.
What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Breathing, setting boundaries, moving, allowing, but finding the time in the day because we only have 24 hours in that day. And for me, I make sure it's 2 minutes. I have a 2-minute practice. I start with 2 minutes. If I end up for 20 minutes, if I end up for an hour, because sometimes that happens, I might sit and say, okay, let me just take a moment. And when I open my eyes, an hour went by or something. Not everybody has that, but what I'm trying to say is that you have to start.
Yeah.
The practice is in you starting, you being persistent in wanting to do it, and then everything else goes from there.
Yeah. So this podcast, SolFul Connections, is part of an ecosystem that is under what I created called Soulful Living. When I say to you soulful living, what comes to mind? What is soulful living to you?
Being happy with who I am, being happy in who I am. I think that's what it means to me.
Well, Michelle, I have to tell you that your presence is such a gift. There is something about you that is in and of itself very centering and very calming. So thank you. I really appreciate your time.
I love that you're even in your question, right? Your podcast, Soulful, like, because that's us.
Yeah.
The heart of us is our own souls.
Yeah.
And so when I saw this, when we were connected, I thought, oh my goodness, what a beautiful name and how you link it to that. And so to me, that is the soulful connection too, right? And so I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. I'm always grateful when I am connected to people who have beautiful souls, such as yourself, because that is what that connection is. And I think it's by doing all of these meaningful connections is how we're able to live in our own purpose by finding the people around us like you. So thank you for what you're doing in connecting all the beautiful souls in our community and in the world. And oh my goodness, so many blessings to you.
So much gratitude. Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the Soulful community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the Soulful Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together, and you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.